DeAndre,
Yesenia,
we're back. We're better than
always.
ever. It's a morning, and
hmm
we woke up hot and steamy for this topic.
Definitely hot and steamy. I'm actually not gonna lie. I've kind of been looking. I say this about every episode, but I'm looking forward to this one for a good while because this is a topic I very much like to talk about, as you well know, especially with the boys. I don't know the boys, and when we get into this, it I wouldn't say raises questions or raises eyebrows, but we learn a little bit about each other every time we talk about this subject.
Yeah. And even outside of our friends, like this is just a good topic about, for boys in general, for people in general, but like
Especially young people.
yeah, like specifically the young people, especially now with all the politics going around with this type of subject, I think a lot of people are going to have to resort to like podcasts to find information like this. So, yeah.
And hey, here we are, a podcast for information like this. Who would have thought?
I mean, that's kind of the purpose as to why we started this podcast. So, this topic for sure is one of the ones that we're excited to just present to y'all and have you sit down and relax for the next hour or so. DeAndre, you want to tell the people what we're talking about today?
Hell yeah. Everybody stay tuned, stick around, grab some snacks, grab a drink, you know the drill, as we get a little soft boiled and as we take a deep dive, and have a little talk about porn versus reality. Coming up next.
Coming.
You are now tuned in to the Soft Boiled Podcast with DeAndre and Yesenia, your one-stop shop for all things relationships. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the show.
Yesenia, the topic of porn is a very much hotly debated topic. Not just from like the porn industry standpoint, but from also a like a sex worker standpoint, even an adult, I guess you could say adult entertainment aspect. Like let's take, well, we call them dancers now, I guess, but the more, I guess, colloquial term would be strippers. Even things
Hmm.
like that. Those are a very much hotly debated topic. Politicians love getting their pants in a tizzy about sex and all things involving sex. Even sex education isn't even being taught in schools anymore,
Hmm.
which will drive kids to want to explore and find these things out on their own, which unfortunately can lead them down the path of the rabbit hole, or going down the rabbit hole of discovering porn, and then their minds get clouded with such nonsense because they don't have the context, of course.
Yeah, and I think it's just such a disservice because especially when we talk about politics, like there's a reason why we have a separation between church and state, and that's why our country is not led by church.
Well,
But
we're supposed to have
then,
it, but let's face
yeah, we're
it.
supposed to have it. And I'm surprised there's not enough like activism. I mean, maybe there is enough actually. Let me rephrase that. I'm surprised there's not more activism about that separation because our country is for sure being led by religious beliefs, specifically when it comes state to state. And really, like when I think about it, it's capitalism. Like the more people that aren't educated about these types of topics, the more like the government benefits from them financially. But it's just such a disservice because when you don't have the education and the knowledge about things like sex, there are, unfortunate consequences. And it really does impact like the lower class and like people of color because we're the ones that end up with that, short stick. But I think when it comes to like sex, obviously, I think everyone, and I will be very surprised about the small amount of people who probably don't do this, but like as you get older, you definitely explore your body, you experiment, you engage in, intercourse and things like that. But if you're not being talked or taught about like safe sex practices, you're gonna get into this loophole and in this belief that what you see on porn is what's real. And I have personally experienced having to educate youth on like porn is not real and how shocking it is that parents aren't talking about this and schools aren't talking about this because it's just it can be very dangerous.
Yeah, looking back on it now, when I was in middle school, I distinctly remember going through sex education, and of course, as a youth, you don't really take that kind of stuff seriously.
Hmm.
But it's not until you get into like high school and maybe even like out of high school and into college that a lot of that stuff that you kind of like are like laughing at, like how to put on a condom and how a vagina works and how your penis works and how other sex organs work, like your skin, breasts, all that kind of stuff. You actually start to realize, oh, that stuff did actually kind of help.
Hmm.
Like I still find myself, obviously, I don't know if did you take sex ed in middle school? You did?
I
Okay.
The earliest education I remember having was either fourth or fifth grade,
Oh wow.
and they separated the boys from the girls. Mind you,
Mm,
this is like 2004, 2005 ish. So there were not no. Hold on, brain needs to work. There wasn't as much of an emphasis on like non-binary, non-heterosexual, like body parts, relationships, things like that. So I didn't really come into understanding like the spectrum of gender up until like middle school, but for sure in elementary school, like a boy is a boy and a girl is a girl. And it was I mean, obviously, I'm sure there were multiple students in my class who were already non-binary and or trans,
right.
but
Yeah.
it was just not a topic we talked about. So boys got separated from the girls, and in the girls class, I remember we learned about periods, how to put on a pad, like tampons, what happens when you have sex. And obviously like very again, like religion was instilled in this idea too. Um because I remember like them talking about sex and like if we were to have sex it'd be a bad thing. And just being very punitive about what happens when you have sex rather than being informational and educational. Like they already were kind of planting these seeds.
Right.
And then I took it again in middle school and then again in high school and then again in college.
Mm. See, that's crazy because like when I remember when I took it, I've always heard that like yeah, some sex ed educators, and I'm sure that the school brings in these types of people for that specific purpose to like instill like a fear of
Yeah.
sex in young boys and especially young girls. Like this is what happens when you have sex, you're gonna get pregnant right off the bat and all that stuff. And they kind of like you said, they plant that seed of fear in your hearts. Uh,
Don't
and
have
it's
sex missionary style. Don't have sex doggy style. Just
yeah.
don't have sex or you will
Mm-hmm.
die.
They were like preached abstinence and stuff. And my educators, they sort of did too, but they didn't preach it, but they were like, yeah, if you just want to avoid STDs altogether, the only 100% surefire way
Hmm.
is abstinence. But they were also like, but if you're going to have sex, these are the diseases you can get. These are ways you can protect yourself. They were actually like pretty insightful and pretty helpful. So I'm actually very grateful for the educators that I had in middle school because they didn't make it fearful, they didn't make it scary. It was literally just information they were giving to us. I distinctly remember one time. I don't know if they did it to you guys, but they called it. I think they called it Woody, and it's just a wooden like cock that
Mm.
you could like practice putting a condom on. Like they legit. And this is the funniest thing ever. I don't think I'll ever forget this. It was the funniest thing uh they brought out the thing. I think they call it Mr. Woody or they just called it Woody. It was just a long like phallic piece of wood and it had like a platform at the bottom and it was just a piece
Oh
of
my
wood and
goodness.
they opened up a fresh condom and they let someone volunteer from the students to come put the condom on Mr. Woody, like, and it was teaching you how to put a condom on right. I mean, as
Yeah.
funny as it sounded as when you're like 14 or whatever, uh I mean, that kind of stuff is important. And I forgot to mention right away off rip, I am obviously like sex positive and so are you.
Hmm.
I have like no I have no like negative well, I don't have too many negative opinions about like the porn industry, adult industry, all that kind of stuff.
Not at all.
I'm not here to be like porn should be banned or anything like that, or OnlyFans should be banned, or adult entertainment should be banned. I'm not here for any of that. I think all that stuff. I think like they say is like sex work is work, all that kind of stuff. I'm here for it. I'm here for the your body, your choice stuff, all that kind of stuff. I love it.
Yeah.
It's
It's really
just the
just,
education part that gets
yep.
lost all the time. And that's why
Yeah.
we have these discussions.
Yeah, we didn't do like a Mr. Woody. We just had bananas. And I remember
Oh,
the
that's a
girls
good
being
one.
very like timid about it, especially when we were in high school. A lot of the girls were timid about it, but we had a professor or a teacher who I remember she was getting like really annoyed that it was just like the guys kind of messing around. And she was like, at some point you're going to get into a situation where a person you're having sex with doesn't have a condom and they might try to convince you to have sex without a condom. And these are the consequences that happen when you do that, which is STDs, like accidental pregnancy, and assuming you take the Plan B pill if you can afford it because we're teenagers, it's $50. I think at the time it was like still $40. Um might not everyone might not be able to afford that, or they don't have the transportation or accessibility to go get one, right? Let alone having to get through your parents. But they were like really positive. Maybe that's not even the right word, but they were just like, women need to learn how to put on a condom and carry condoms. And I was in high school when I was first getting on birth control. And even the woman, my like nurse, when she was asking me about like contraceptive options, she like sat me down and she was like, you need to put, condoms in your purse, switch them out, don't keep them in hot places, make sure that they're protected so no holes can be poked on them. And I remember, I love this woman. She was like, if you are ever going to be having sex with a person with the penis,
A person
inspect.
with a penis.
She was like, inspect the penis. If there's any lumps,
I mean,
if it
hey,
smells,
she was
if
on to
there's
something.
redness. Like she was
Oh
like
yeah.
kind of graphic. And she's like, you don't put it in your vagina. You don't put it in your mouth. Don't be putting it around your face. Don't even touch it. Just observe carefully. She's like, the worst thing you can do is say no
Hmm.
and they get upset. But rather they get upset and you're safe than you be unsafe because you were too scared to say no.
Oh yeah,
And
absolutely.
that's just something that I carry with me, and that's something I tell like the teens that I work with. It's like, I'm not here to tell you to have sex or not have sex. I'm just here to give you the information. You do what you will. I want you to make an educated choice out of knowledge rather than a choice out of fear.
No, absolutely. Like inspect the penis. Like it's funny you say.
Inspect the
It's
penis.
funny you say that because I kind of do the same thing with the girls
Mhm.
that I'm with. Like same thing. If it doesn't look right, if something looks off, hey, protect, like you say, protect yourself.
Mhm.
I'd rather hurt somebody's feelings than be stuck with medication for the next X amount of weeks or months trying to get rid of some stuff that I caught.
Yeah.
And I fuck that shit.
Ooh, I have a story that I'd be
Ooh,
open to sharing about that.
I love stories.
Um, I know we're talking about porn, but we're just going to be talking about, I guess, all things sex in addition to that. Um, so again, the reason why it's important to just have boundaries, being able to state your boundaries. Um, I had sex with a person when I was in college, and I remember he, like in the midst of it all, he just started feeling a lot of pain, and I was very confused.
Like in the middle of
Yeah,
the
in the middle of
act.
intercourse.
Oh
Yeah.
wow.
And it was just really weird, but I was like, okay, like, well, we're gonna stop. About a week later, he like calls me and he's just like going off on me because he had gonorrhea.
Mm.
And I was freaking out. Like, I was like, great. And then he was accusing me of giving it to him. And I was like, you are the first person I've had sex with in like 2 years. It can't be me. I know it's not me because after I had broken up with my ex before moving, I got tested. Um, so to make a really long story short, he accused me of giving him gonorrhea, and it made me really happy that I chose to utilize a condom because he didn't have one. And I was like, well, we're not doing it until we go get one. So we ended up getting one. I got tested and I was clean and like further showed him that like it couldn't have been from me. But I remember being really like just self-conscious about it and just really shame about it and just feeling really guilty about it too because it just made me feel like, okay, this is the reason why like I shouldn't be having sex, and this is the reasons why like I can't like just hook up with people randomly. It made me more fearful rather than making me feel proud that I stated my boundaries and I chose to utilize protection, because then I could have ended up with it, right? And for people who are out there struggling with a current STD and or have given someone an STD or received an STD, like again, when we talk about stereotypes and like the media and politics, like it really does put that negative connotation. And it's because there's a lack of resources, there's a lack of education, and there's a lack of information. And I don't think there's anything that should be like shameful about it. Like it happened, let's take care of our bodies, let's take care of ourselves, let's communicate. If you do have it and you want to engage in sex with somebody, but you know you have something, just be upfront and honest. Like for me personally, there would be nothing more like appealing than a person who's so honest and willing to be vulnerable. Like, hey, I have this thing. Can we wait until it's cleared? Yeah. And then let's talk about how we can practice safe sex. I think safe sex, I'm gonna quote Lil Wayne, safe sex is the best sex. Better wear a latex before you get that I think I'm latex or whatever. And yeah, I just think about that version of myself and I'm like, you know what? Like I wish I didn't beat myself up during that time period, because I think again, I just shamed myself for wanting sex, and sex is a part of life. It's normal to like want to have sex. And it was a really unfortunate experience.
Yeah, I'm gonna circle back to the whole STD test thing in a second, but to like a larger picture, staying on that topic, sort of. I think that's also another reason why sex education is very important, because they also can teach you about how to and what different ways and like what fluids contract STDs and whatnot, gonorrhea, syphilis, even HIV, blowing up into AIDS, crabs, things like that. Sex ed also does a very good job of teaching you what these things are, how they're treated, how you can get them, all that kind of stuff. And that's of course another thing porn can't teach you, because especially when you're at a young age, there's only like, well, at least off the top of my head that I can think of, there's only like 3 ways a kid is gonna figure out what sex is and how it works and all that kind of stuff. It's gonna be the parents, sex ed in schools, and it's gonna be porn. And I'm gonna be honest, if you're a young boy, you're gonna find out porn eventually, whether you learn it in school or whether you learn it through your parents. It's much like playing Grand Theft Auto. At some point, you're gonna be exposed to it. You're gonna end up playing it. But like we said before, the context is what matters. How things work in reality versus how things look on camera and on film are very different than how things work. And I think a lot of, I would probably say every young person, they get that idea in their head of, oh, my penis goes here, and if I go hard and fast, that means she likes it, or if she's making noises, she likes it, and if I do this, then that means that, and if I do that, that means this. When all of that, none of it, none of it is. I'm not gonna say like everything you see on porn is like fake or whatever. Sure, I'm sure some of the dudes and some of the girls are genuinely enjoying themselves, and more power to them. But I think at the end of the day, we also need to remember that porn is just like Hollywood. A lot of them are acting. Some of them are very good at what they do. Others not so much. But the good ones can really make you believe that everything that you're watching is real and genuine, except for the bad scripts, obviously, and the atrocious quote unquote acting, I guess you could say, when they're not having sex. The quote unquote plot, as some would say.
Yeah.
But yeah, and even to your point about getting tested, man, there's a lot of people seem to think that porn is a very dirty industry, and don't get me wrong, it is, but not from like a disease standpoint, because if I'm being completely honest with you, if I was single, I would much rather fuck a porn star than anyone walking the street right now, because for a fact because the simple fact that they all have to be tested in order to even film anything. Everything has to be negative. No one can have a hint of anything. So people like to throw that around of, oh, this she's been ran through, that thing seemed more,
Again, a stereotype, patriarchy, that
yeah,
sense of like women are not allowed to enjoy sex.
right. Like that vagina seemed more cocks in a chicken coop or something like that. You
Yep.
know what I mean? Like all that shit. But in reality, man, they're more tested than you are.
Yep.
Like you were saying, people don't like to get tested because it makes them feel bad and it makes them feel icky. And I get it. It's not I wouldn't even, it shouldn't be a bad feeling, like you were saying, to go get tested and just be genuine and honest, even to yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you're honest with yourself, then you can be honest to other people. And if a porn star can do it, now I guess it's because it's their job that they have to do it. But like, if they can do it, you can. Because they have to do it to make a living. You have to do it to keep other people's, or not even other people. You have to do it to keep your partners safe.
Yeah. I think like what, 2016 maybe? I remember Netflix had a documentary about amateur porn stars.
I think I
And just
watched that, or I think I watched like some porn documentary on Netflix like a long time ago. I
I
think I
don't
know
know.
the one
Okay,
you're
well
talking
then,
about.
is it the one where the girl got like her like lubricant gland got like infected or inflamed, and she had to get like surgery? She had to get it drained because she was having sex too
This
much.
might be a different one.
Okay, so I remember,
That sounds awful though.
yeah. Well, again, that's kind of what happens when your body's just like kind of overusing something, which it
Hmm.
happens, right? It's a natural thing. But I remember kind of watching that documentary and being really like shocked about how safe and careful they are because again, the media doesn't show you that porn stars are safe and careful. Because how bad would it be if one person with like syphilis is just having sex with all these people, like just
Hmm.
spreading it, and then it results in a lot of death and it results in a lot of sickness and shame. And I think when it comes to porn, like, yes, it's a lot of like fantasy, it's a lot of fiction. Not to say that they're not having fun, right? Not to say that they're not enjoying themselves. But it's for that like bigger fantasy of the everyday person. And I think when it comes to like the youth right now, a lot of, well, we're 2023. There's porn everywhere on
Hell yeah.
Instagram, on Twitter.
It's more accessible now than it has ever been. It's
It's
crazy.
ever been. And like our generation grew up with the internet, so we're like adapting as we go versus like kids nowadays and like teenagers nowadays, like they've always had it. So it's very different, but it's really important just to remind y'all that like porn is very constructed. Um
Hmm.
and if you are someone that watches porn to like masturbate, that's great. If you are using it to reenact, like really just talk to your partner and communicate during sex. And if you are someone who is on the receiving end of something and you don't like something while you're having intercourse, like try to find some courage to like say something about it because what happens is when people don't speak up, they don't state their likes, they don't communicate, it ends up feeling really uncomfortable. And having uncomfortable sex can spiral into shame and guilt. And I know a lot of people, well, I don't know about now, but I know a lot of folks that felt like they were essentially like, and just to kind of give like a trigger warning, a lot of people I know had uncomfortable sex and felt like they were raped. And we would dive into it to talk about it. And I'm like, well, there's a big difference between having just like really shitty sex that like just sucked and then obviously being sexually assaulted. But again, when you don't have the knowledge and the education to talk about yeah, sometimes sex is really shitty, you're not going to know the difference because you just feel that guilt and that shame. And I'm not talking about the more brutal versions of sexual assault. I'm talking about the ones that kind of go unnoticed of like you said no, or maybe you didn't say no, but you didn't want to, or like in the midst of it all, you decided to change your mind. Like those moments where people really question themselves. Because again, there's a spectrum of sexual assault and the levels of violence that goes with that. But it's not always what we see on like TV. Sometimes like you're in the midst of it with a partner and you change your mind and you start to say no, or you want to say no and you just didn't know how to. And yeah, so I think it's just really important to like talk about it. I mean, that's the biggest thing that I can really emphasize on this podcast and on this episode specifically. But there was something else that I wanted to say. And when it comes to porn and like teenage boys, because I worked at a middle school before, oh my goodness. I knew which boys were watching porn based on the stupid sounds that they would make in class. Like they would fake moan or they
Oh
would know
my
like
God.
porn star names. And I'm like, oh my God. Having conversations with boys about porn and sex is probably the most uncomfortable thing I've ever done because they're just like not taking it seriously. But I'm like thinking about those boys now. They're like in high school. I think they're like junior, senior year now. Um, and I'm just like, ugh, I hope if anything that they're just having safe sex and not thinking porn is still real.
And, it's crazy that you say that. Because I when I started having sex, I kind of used porn as like a tool to help me get better at sex. Because yeah, like you said, it is constructed, and
Mhm.
it helps people play out fantasies. I don't know what's going on with this crazy trend of stepmother and stepbrother and all that kind of stuff. I don't know what's going on with.
COVID.
Yeah, that's that COVID stuff, man. Whew, that really kicked people's asses for some reason. But I would sort of use porn as a tool to help me get better at sex, especially when I started having sex more frequently. I
Hmm.
would I would watch porn, sure, to masturbate, obviously, but I would also be, like, this kind of may sound geeky or nerdy. I'd be kind of paying attention to be like, all right, what positions would I maybe like, or what positions maybe I should try out? You know what I mean? And I wouldn't just try them out willy nilly. Kind of like how you were saying, make sure your partner is consenting to, everything, and make sure that they're enjoying it as much as me, all that kind of stuff. Like, even in the midst of sex, when girls, even if it's just a random girl that I've never met before or whatever, and we're just having sex, for like the first or second or third time or whatever, I would always, throughout it, and this may sound like tedious and some people may find it annoying, but I think it's okay to do this personally. I would always be asking, like, are you okay with this? Do you like that? Do you want more of this? Am I
Hmm.
I wouldn't, be like, I wouldn't be at the end be like, all right, what's my grade? You know what I mean? I would
Hmm.
just make sure along the way that they're comfortable with this position, or if I put my finger here, or if I lick you there, or if I touch you there, I'd make sure everything was okay. And then if I felt, things were, flowing the way that that we like, then maybe, I'll tap into my little tapestry of sex positions, and then be like, all right, I've never done this before, but I'm gonna fucking try it. Here we go. I'm gonna put your leg up here, and we're gonna go for a ride, type of shit.
Um, yeah, I think the ongoing grabbing of consent is probably a really good thing because,
Yeah,
sometimes, especially like if it's more of quote unquote a random hookup, I think people change their mind in the middle and they don't know how to verbalize that.
yeah, exactly.
So, or they might not be as sexually explorative.
Hmm.
And so just being able to, keep getting consent, not just for the act itself, but like you said, positions, grabbing, touching, things like that. Um, okay, this is gonna be really weird. It kind of reminds me of when I go to the gynecologist and, I get my pap smears and, when things just feel different. I feel like us as women just know when we're off. So I make doctor's appointments. But I remember one time I had a doctor who literally asked me for consent for like every single movement. And I loved it because as some self-disclosure, I have experienced sexual assault in the past. And not to say I'm hyper vigilant around it anymore. I think I've processed and healed and like moved forward from it all. But there's some instances where things still kind of get me or like surprise me. And so having that doctor like really like, okay, like I'm gonna put my hand on your knee. Now I'm moving my hand closer to you. I am using this instrument, and then explains what the instrument does and how they're gonna utilize it. And then they give me like a countdown, like take a deep breath. Is this still okay? I mean, that's their job, but it made me realize how safe I was with that specific doctor. And she's still my doctor till this day. I won't go to anybody else. Um, and even before, I had a guy doctor, a guy gynecologist, and that's I always think guys who get into gynecology is a little weird, but that's just me.
No,
Um,
I kind of agree also. But then again,
because
at the
then you
same
have
time,
to have.
I don't mean to cut you off, but like, I think I think it's a little weird, but at the same time, it's like he can't be getting into it knowing he's just gonna be touching and licking at vaginas all day, because there are times where you are seeing these women in their vaginas at the worst, and that's not what a guy wants to see. So he must genuinely care. He must genuinely like the money, because no guy is gonna want to go down there and like see some sights. You know what I mean?
True. Um, Now that I think about it, I don't remember if my woman gynecologist has a second person in the room with me, but I remember when I had a guy gynecologist, we had like a female nurse in the room with me, also looking at my hoo-ha.
That I think that might be normal. I think I've heard that being like a
I
pretty
know that's
normal
a thing,
practice.
yeah, that's best practice. Any rate, it just made me realize how much that's something I appreciate in my intimate relationships. Um, because like sometimes I get really bad anxiety. Previously I used to be really shamed. I would shame myself, I would say, about like intimate moments with partners. So I think that just getting consent and continuously getting consent is not a bad thing. It might be tedious and it might be annoying, but would you rather have a person who really enjoys having sex with you or be put on the shit list?
Yeah, man. At the end of the day, just I think to me the name of the game, and everybody's different. The name of the game is just to have fun.
Yeah.
You know, um, fuck. I just had a point about that. Yeah, whatever. I'm sure it'll come to me in like 5 minutes when it's not even relevant anymore.
I know I had a
But
point earlier and I completely lost it.
but I did want to kind of going back to what you were talking about, the teenage boys thing, and them watching porn. It is just to lighten the mood for a little bit. It is always uh interesting whenever the topic of porn gets brought up in like groups and whatnot, how all the guys just sort of like light up and they start going on tangents of like what they grew up watching, who were their favorite porn stars. Oh, this girl had the best ass, and oh man, the rack on this chick was fucking like. And if I'm being kind of honest, like I think porn can really shape what kind of girls or what kind of women guys will eventually
Go
end up
after.
liking. You know, especially like the younger you are, especially like it's like kind of like what you're first exposed to as a
Hmm.
as a youngster. You're like, because I who was the first porn? I think one of my friends showed me a porn site once, and I don't remember the first video he showed me. He was just showing it because he was one of those guys that were like, oh, I just watch porn to laugh and all that kind of stuff. Because he would be
Hmm.
laughing at the absurdity of all the fake moans and all that kind of stuff. And then I remember the website he showed me, so I just kind of delved deep on my own. And then I was like, "Oh, I kind of like this." And
Hmm.
I remember the first porn star that I ever really called like my favorite was it was like Rachel Starr,
Hmm.
and I was like, "Oh man, this is kind of cool." And then it just sort of like spiraled from there and everything. Now I don't even like nowadays. I like if I ever would to look up porn, I don't even look her up anymore. It's fucking crazy. Like your tastes change over time or whatnot, and it's always interesting to hear uh different or like my friends' perspectives on like who they watched, who they grew up with,
Hmm.
what kinds of porn. Cause there's one of our friends. He can only watch uh how do you say, like the wildest stuff. Like normal sex just doesn't do it for him anymore.
Hmm.
He has to, and
One of
it
our friends?
yeah, oh yeah, yeah, you know exactly, you know who it is too. Well, it may not be obvious, but if I type his name, you'd be like, oh, um, but yeah, he can only watch. He's like very big into like hentai and you know all this like weird stuff and everything. Well,
Hmm.
I say weird, but like it's not. It's pretty normal to him now, I guess. But like,
It's just different.
yeah, and I think that stuff also plays a part into porn. Also, very much plays a part into like desensitizing people to seeing stuff to the point where like I've heard stories of people literally can't get hard anymore unless they're having like threesomes or they're like in a cuckold situation or something.
Hmm.
And I think those kind of things let me backtrack. Like for example, I used to not like threesome porn.
Hmm.
And then I had my first threesome, or and then I started having multiple threesomes, and then I started watching threesome porn. Again, going back to the sex making me a better or sex or porn making me better at sex.
Hmm.
I like retrospectively went back to watching threesome porn, and I'm like, oh shit, okay, I could try this, I could try that, all that kind of stuff.
Hmm.
Uh, but fuck. Oh god, the train's off the rails now. I was going somewhere with that, and I just completely. But
You were.
something about desensitization along those lines, something like that.
We'll get back to it. Yeah, I think when it comes to, I know a few fellas who have come to me who have sought my advice. Let me use those words better.
Yeah, let's watch our wordplay there.
um, because they just felt like they're either watching too much porn and just can't rise to the occasion for their partners, or in the midst of the heat of the moment you're about to have sex with somebody, they can't, excuse me, they can't rise to the occasion and just being like concerned about it. And then I think that goes to just like the anxiety piece, like you're overthinking it. So then it's all in your head and then you're not focused on the moment anymore. You're in your head. Um, and I think sometimes people might just kind of like overdo it. Um, and I think everyone's different too. So just really like learning yourself and knowing yourself. But I think that can be like a negative impact from porn is just you're really turned on and you're like getting off to these videos, but when it comes down to like the real life moment, it might not be as enticing or it might not be as fulfilling. Not to say you don't think the person's hot or you're not feeling them or whatever, but like the reality of sex sometimes isn't as grand or this big fantasy like porn can be. Um, and I think when it comes to those types of situations, just kind of like taking a step back and like making sure like your body is healthy, specifically for men, because I know that's like a big blow to men's ego is like not rising to the occasion.
Oh, absolutely. That's like half of men's personalities is tied to their fucking penis. It's crazy.
Yeah. So, just being able to like check on yourself. And like if you're having concerns, go to the doctor. Like have conversations with your doctor about it. Um, being able to just maybe take a break from like sexual intimacy to work on your physical and your mental health and then having communication, right? Having conversations with your partner about what's happening so maybe they can help you. Sometimes you got to spice things up and try something new. And if you have a partner who's willing, and hopefully you do, you'll be able to enjoy and like have fun again.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. Variety is a spice of life.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, much like there's all different kinds of sex you can have, there's all different kinds of porn out there. Um, Shit. I mean, honestly, I would just use use porn to your advantage and not hurt you, because Lord knows, I know I've been in a situation. I think it's only happened to me once where I was like way into the girl and everything, but like I just couldn't. I no, hold on, no, yeah, that was right. Yeah, I couldn't finish. That
Mm-hmm.
was the problem. Uh, and I don't, and I got like way in my head about that. I was like beating myself up over it because we had sex maybe like 3 or 4 times, and every single time it just couldn't, you know, things
Mm-hmm.
just it just would not go in my head like fucking go, like it's fucking go time right now. You know what I mean? Like we're in the middle of it, and I was like, all right, and now, you know what I mean? Almost like a trigger, but like nah, it just
Now
would not.
and now.
Exactly right. Like all right, we've been here for 2 hours now. Let's go. You know what I mean? Uh, but oh, that's the point I was gonna make too while you were talking about it is yeah, sex or porn glamorizes sex so much where like how we've been saying, everyone looks like they're having fun and having a good time, all this, that, and the other, but you don't really understand what goes behind it. No pun intended. I was gonna say what goes into it, but then that didn't make sense either, so I pivoted, but the pivot didn't work either.
Should stuck with the
Because
first one.
yeah, because for sex is work, man. For men and women, like, don't get it twisted, guys. Like, you don't have to be the one doing all the work. There are positions for women to, ride them cowboy, all that kind of stuff. They can get their backs into it too. This isn't just a one man show over here. It takes two to tango. But yeah, sex is work, man. That shit's sometimes it's hard. Sometimes you don't got the courage.
It's a workout.
Yeah, you don't got the courage. You don't got the strength for it in the beginning, but you got to dig deep and find it somewhere. You know what I mean? Oh my god, this is hard.
Sorry.
This is difficult. It's trying to.
You were going to say this is hard, and I was going to be like, that's what she said.
I was, but I had to stop myself because we were going to go down that. No, anyway,
here's a game that y'all can play while you're listening to this podcast. Maybe you have to re-listen to it, or maybe we could just edit this and put it at the beginning. Every time you hear a sexual innuendo or like a pun, you take a shot.
Yeah, Jesus Christ, viewers are gonna die of alcohol poisoning.
Please do not drink and drive. Drink responsibly. You must be 21 and over to drink any alcohol beverage.
But another thing I was gonna say while I was saying that it's like, also there are certain smells that you may not be familiar with, or you're just gonna have to get used to. Like, what does a vagina smell like? What does a vagina taste like? What is, you're gonna be putting your nose in your mouth in places that you've never explored before, and everyone tastes and smells different. So it's like, it's just one of those things you just gotta. I don't really know, but like I said, most of the courage up for.
That reminds me, because I had a train of thought earlier and I lost it, but you just reminded me. Talking about quote unquote weird interest, and then also this idea of like what porn can and can't teach you. So I had a friend who had a client who asked, like, my parents are super religious. They won't talk to me about sex, and I want to have sex with this person, blah, blah, blah. And I obviously didn't know this. Well, not obvious, but I just didn't know this, but I think it's actually kind of cool. I don't know if this has always been a thing, but I know some porn websites, at least like Pornhub, for example, they do actually have like more educational videos now. And I don't know if that was always the case, but like, I remember my friend was telling me, like, because, she was like, okay, let me try to find some resources for my client. So she kind of like explored, and some videos popped up. And I think something that's really cool is like, when it comes to figuring out your own body or figuring out another person's body, is there's videos on that. But just being really mindful that sometimes they don't teach you about this thing. Like, and with media right now, again, I think we bash social media all the fucking time. We need to do an episode on it. But like, social media and like just media in general will really just make it seem like women are supposed to be like squeaky clean and hairless and taste like water, and like we have to smell like roses and champagne or flowers or whatever. And that's just like so bullshit. It's very patriarchal, and it's just not the case. Like, every single person has their own scent. We all have our own taste. Also, like, people with like female anatomy, we ovulate and we have discharge, and it tastes differently at different times of the month. Like, the one person can have different tastes at different days of the month, and the consistency is different and the thickness is different, and like, it's related to our health and like our pH balance. And there are some people out there that think that's gross, and they're like, ew, you stink, or you smell weird, or you taste funny. And I'm like, what the fuck you think I'm gonna taste like? Like, what do you think people taste like?
It and tastes like a bag of Cheetos down there.
Exactly. I mean, I know I eat a lot of hot Cheetos, just kidding. But still, like, there's this like fake narrative out there of like just tasting good. And a lot of that, a lot of our body fluids is related to what we put into our body. So if you're drinking and consuming a lot of sugars and a lot of like fats and high sodiums, you're probably gonna excrete that, whether it's your sweat, it's your saliva, it's your breath, your discharge, your semen, your poop, your pee, like it's a thing. But if you have a more balanced diet and or have like a more quote unquote healthy, because everyone's versions of health is different, healthy is different, it's going to come out in the way that you excrete bodily fluid. So the idea of you are what you eat type of thing, right? So that's the first point that I wanted to make. And the second point is, DeAndre, earlier you were saying how some of, or one of our friends has like these quote unquote weird interests. I think that's also another thing that I feel like kind of gets on my nerves when it comes to like porn and maybe like thinking about masturbation and stuff, is because I think everyone has their own interests, but because we have this stereotype of like what's quote unquote normal, everything outside of normal is just weird and people are disgusting. Like, why is it okay for like people to use like vibrators and dildos, but it's not okay for other people to use like, what are they called, the penis suckers and
Fleshlights.
flashlights and things like that? Like, why is it more normalized for one group of people to be using one type of toy, but not for other people using other type of toys? I think if you want to masturbate and want to use toys, you should go ahead and do so. Like,
Hell
that's
yeah, more
your
power to
body.
you.
Exactly. And, you know, I'm thinking more of the stereotypical quote unquote men with penises, like cis males, utilizing like blow up dolls or just utilizing more of the like sucking motion type of toys, but they get like a bad rap or considered like creeps. But like if a woman identifying person utilizes like a dildo, it's hot. Like, the double standard there, I hate it.
Yeah.
People are into what they're into, and you shouldn't knock people because they have a certain type of sexual exploration side of them and it's different from yours.
That did make me think of a meme. It was a meme I seen like years ago. It was something along the lines of, man, no wonder most of y'all women can't get off because some of y'all got like some women have just normal dildos, but you want to take a jackhammer to your shit or something like that. And I'd be like, damn, like, I mean, hey, that's kind of true though. Like some girls, they need the dildos with that spin and vibrate, and you know they got like a jackhammer action going on there, and they got the clitoral stimulation, all that kind of stuff. Maybe you got one that's got like one that goes in the pooper up in the bag. I don't know, like I don't know. Shit, they're coming up with all these fucking crazy inventions. Like, it's hard to keep up with now, but Lord knows what's out there now.
I mean,
like,
I feel like if you have a clitoris, you might need it because some people do not know how to find the clitoris.
man,
Majority of people don't know how to find the clitoris.
man, much going back to that sex education, man, like and I get it, like sex ed can't teach you everything, and there are some things that you know you will just have to learn in the field, so to speak. But I think also another half of that we haven't talked about yet is listening. Listening goes a long way to your partner's bodies, wants, and needs, and things like that. You know, if they're not being stimulated in the way that they want, a good partner at least will, you know, help you out in the long run. They'll put your hand where they want it to go. You know, they'll motion things to you of like, oh, I want this, or can you do that to me, all that kind of stuff. You know, listening just goes a long way too, not just being educated, but actually taking the education to heart and putting it into practice.
Yep.
Because for the love of God, it still blows my mind that, you know, like you were saying, guys don't know where the what the clit is, where it is, all that kind of stuff. It's kind of infuriating. So I'm like, Jesus Christ, guys. Like, you call yourselves like studs and all this kind of stuff, but like you don't know how to get a woman off. It's crazy. Not that I'm sitting here gonna say like I'm like a sex guru or anything like that, but like, you know,
Yeah. And again, a big difference between porn and like reality. And again, I'm not trying to like bash the porn industry at all. Porn can be a guide, it can be a reference, it can spice up your life. But you know, a
Yeah,
big
porn's
thing
great.
that porn kind of portrays is like my pants are off, here's my penis, now you're wet. Like boom.
Yeah, oh yeah,
Like
the instant, drop of a hat, we're
yes.
we're ready.
And often that is not the case. Not to say that there aren't people out there like that, for sure. And that's not the case for a lot of people. Some people need a lot more like intimacy. And I don't mean like physical intimacy, I mean like emotional intimacy. Some people need a lot of foreplay. Other people like, you know, like communication when for the foreplay. Other people like the touching. Some people like toys. Some people don't ever have orgasms. Like I know a lot of, not a lot, I know a handful of women um who have never had an orgasm, and I'm like, you're just missing out. Um and actually one of those people has never masturbated before. At least what she has told me, she's never masturbated before. Um which can go back to, you know, again, like learning yourself, learning your body. How are you going to direct someone to do what you like if you don't know what you like? But I also understand that some people might be a little timid. Um And then I also think like if you don't want to have sex with yourself, why would somebody want to have sex with you? But
Hmm.
that's also a bias, and I feel like that portrays a negative like message. So I'm also gonna you know take a step back from that. But I think when it comes to the actual heat of the moment, you're ready to like be in the throes. It looks the idea of getting ramped up and getting turned on and all of that stuff is different for everybody. So just see what you like, learn about what you like, and also setting those hard boundaries of what you don't like.
Yeah, the sex industry is not the end all be all. Be educated, educate yourself, educate your partners if they don't know um if they don't know the right info or they need access to the right info, guide them. It's not something to be ashamed of if you don't know, um if you just don't know things.
Hmm.
Being ignorant, um and it's not being ignorant is not an excuse anymore. Especially we have the world at our fingertips. If you want to find something, you can look it up in a matter of seconds.
Yeah, everything's literally at the palm of our hands now,
Yeah.
which is wild.
Now, like we've been saying, we're all for the sex industry, adult industry, all that kind of stuff, porn, everything. At the end of the
Hmm.
day, if you want to use it as a tool to help you, go for it. If you want to use it as a tool to mistreat your partners and just try things out, shame on you. The fuck is wrong with you? Now,
Yeah.
now, this might take a left turn, but how do we feel? How do we feel about OnlyFans? Because I know that's also become like a very prominent platform. Also, in addition to paid sites like Pornhub and Brazzers, all that kind of stuff. Now we've got literally everybody. Anybody can. I shouldn't say become a porn star, because just because you make an OnlyFans, if you sucking dick or getting fucked or masturbating in public, that doesn't make you an adult. I guess it kind of maybe makes you an adult entertainer, but it doesn't make you a part of the adult industry. Uh,
You know, it's a hit or miss. I've never really seen things on OnlyFans other than like what gets posted on like Instagram. I don't have Twitter. So it's very confined to what's acceptable on Instagram. Um, as someone who used to sell her used socks, there's a market, and when there's a market, there's people who are going to pay. And if people want to empower themselves to make a few extra doll hairs
doll hairs.
to pay bills, to make a living, by all means, like, I don't care. Like, the thing about it is, again, a patriarchal society created a market for it, and people are just taking advantage of that. So I sold used socks back on eBay, in the good old eBay days where like Amazon didn't really exist like that, or at least it wasn't as known, to help myself pay for college. And because of that, I didn't have to take out loans. And because of that, I didn't have to like suffer and go through like a tough hardship. Like, yeah, I still kind of went through it, but it financially, like I was okay. Um, sometimes like I think about it because I'm like, damn, like an OnlyFans probably would be cool, but now that I'm going into like social work and stuff, obviously, like that's not a
Yeah,
market
it's
that I
not
can get into
yeah.
at all. So, I sometimes kind of get envious of people who have that courage and have the confidence to do so because there's a market for it. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know why some, especially like, again, politics, right? Like, congressmen and senators get hella mad about shit like that. But damn well they're paying for hella of those people's fucking OnlyFans. Y'all are paying college tuitions to keep that shit with the NDAs and stuff. So, yeah.
Yeah, I'm glad you went that route because I was gonna sort of say the same thing. Like, like porn sort of empowers people, and now that power, that empowerment has been put into the hands of like regular, everyday, average Joes like you and me, to the point where yeah, you can pay your college tuition, or you can pay a couple bills. If you need a little side hustle, that kind of shit. Like you said, you sold your used socks. Ain't no problem with that. Shit, if I could sell my used socks, man, I would be running. I would be a Fortune 500 company by myself.
Right.
God damn it, fucking. I told my girlfriend like, hey, if you ever want to sell feet pics or whatever, sell whatever, I don't give a fuck. that's that's money right there. You know what I mean? You wanna pay for dinner one night? Hey, here you go. Go hop on such and such website, sell this feet pic to whatever the fuck, dip it in peanut butter if you need to. You know what I mean? Like
You're there with the lighting and everything to help
hell,
her
hey,
make you
hell,
look explicit
hell
as
yeah.
fuck.
If she needs the lighting, the setup, the good if she needs a DSLR camera, you know what I mean? Like shit, I'm here for it.
It's
You
funny that
know?
you mentioned that. So when I was with my ex, I used to have the WhatsApp. I mean, I still kind of have it for my family in Mexico, but I don't use it like that. But on my WhatsApp, this guy hit me up saying that he was looking for like a sugar baby and blah blah blah, and he would be paying me like whatever amount of money um for like I don't know, conversations or for texting, whatever. So he gave me like a price every week, right? And so I talked to my ex about it because I was like showing him, and I was like, "Do you think this is a scam?" It for sure was a scam. Let me just start there.
Mm.
Um, but I was like, in the slight chance that this is real, like, would you be okay with it? He was like, "You do what you want," and I guess also some part of me probably wanted him to get a little jealous and be like, "Nah, fuck that. Like, you're just mine." But he just wasn't like that. So we talked about it and we set like really clear boundaries and we were like really like, all right, like, yeah, like do this. And he just wanted to choose out of it. Like, yeah, you'll take me on trips and take me on dates and stuff. Um, so I like inquired about it, but then it became a scam of like, well, send me $50 so I know it's real. And I'm like,
Yeah.
like get my hopes up for nothing.
Yep.
But it was kind of cool because it's like, if someone just wants you to send titty pictures without your face and like feet pictures and maybe like the occasional phone call and the occasional like text, as long as I didn't meet with them in person, I didn't show my face with like nudes or whatever, then like my partner at the time was like cool with it. I would have never probably sent him my own nudes. I probably would have found nudes on the internet and sent him
Yeah.
those. Or like on Tumblr because I still have my Tumblr and there's always nudes on Tumblr. Just make it consistent, right? So in that respects, it's kind of cool to have had a partner that been like, yeah, I'm down. And like I said, there's a market for it. So as long as someone's getting some type of benefit, it reminds me of when girls go out with their boyfriends and another guy hits on them and like wants to buy them drinks and how some guys get really mad and other guys are like, hell yeah, someone's paying for our drinks all night. That means I don't have to pay for him.
Yeah, that
Um,
that's me right there. That's totally me. Hell yeah, I
oh yeah.
ain't paying for shit. No, I would
Some other suckers doing it? You damn
damn
right.
right. Shit, I would pay. I would have an OnlyFans. Fuck, man. I would absolutely have one. That is money right there. That is
I could
easy
see you
money.
having an OnlyFans.
Oh, I'd be good at it too, man. Oh fuck. But
And all your
Yesenia.
costumes.
Oh fuck yeah. But Yesenia, it's about that time yet again.
It's about that time. Wow, that was a little spicy one.
Yeah.
It's a little spicy bowl of ramen.
Mm-hmm. Hey, we like spicy, a little medium level spicy, not too spicy. I like to taste it. I like to taste the broth a little bit.
A good medium spice level.
Mm-hmm. But
Well,
yeah.
folks, I want to applaud you if you are still listening and have gotten this far. Again, really just to reiterate what DeAndre had mentioned earlier in the episode. We're not here to talk shit about porn. We're not here to talk shit about anything. We are just saying that education and knowledge can be so powerful. And it's unfortunate the state of our country is really trying to limit and pretty much do away with a lot of that knowledge and education. But there's reasons why we have doctors. The internet literally has everything. Ask your parents if you are still at the age where you have to ask your parents for things. My older folks, talk to your friends. Friends can also be a really good point of resource. Just making sure that you are consenting, you are having fun, and you are being safe. That's really the message we wanted to get across today. So we thank you for staying here and listening to this spicy little episode of Soft Boiled. It has been a great pleasure. Your hostess with the mostest. My name is Yesenia.
I'm Dean.
And this is Soft Boiled.
Deuces.
Do-do-do-do-do-do-do.